Hi everyone, I'm Susan Mulvihill. You know, August is such a time of abundance. We have all of these wonderful vegetables that are ripening and providing us with so much great food. And our flower gardens are absolutely outdoing themselves. So this time of year, there are a lot of important things to stay on top of. So come on along with me and we'll take care of them. Our garden is in Zone 5B. And one of the things I love growing is melons. I plant short season varieties and I do everything I can to make sure that melons are going to ripen by the end of the season. One of the things that I find I need to do, and you might need to as well if you live in a northern area, is to trim off excess vines past where melons are growing, because these flowers and these tiny little melons are not going to be finished growing by the end of the season. And so what I do is I carefully go back and make sure there isn't a melon attached anywhere along here, and I just trim them off. It's always depressing if you accidentally cut off something like this. But this time of year, this is when you definitely want to trim back your melon vines. Again, if you live in a short season climate. Okay, that task is done, and I discovered that there are 9 melons in here that are developing, and they're all about this size. So they will definitely make it by the end of the season. I need to do the same thing with my winter squash vines. You can see they are rambling all over the place. And I do have some squash on here, so I have to be very careful where I trim off. There's a squash right there, so I'm just going past it and trimming off this. Look at that gorgeous flower. There's another squash here that's on the same vine, and that's it for that one. And then you'll notice this vine is heading this way. That one's kind of small. I don't think it's going to make it. So I'm going to trim just past this big one here. These are cushaw squash, and I am just crazy about them because they make a great pie. So there's another one. Now let's see if I can find any others. There's a tiny one on this vine, and I'm going to trim it back to there. Now, one of the things you might not be aware of is that if you accidentally cut off a fairly small winter squash, you can actually cook and prepare them just like you do with summer squash. They're tender and delicious, so they don't have to go to waste. And these beautiful flowers, they can be used in cooking because they're edible. They can be stuffed, you can put them in different dishes, and they're wonderful. You know, I haven't grown spaghetti squash for a few years, and I had forgotten that even though they're on a vine, the vines are pretty compact. The plants almost grow a little more bushy like a zucchini. So I'm really just going to leave these alone because they seem to be doing fine. This one is even turning color a little bit, but they seem to be self-limiting, so I think we're okay. This is one of our tomato beds, and in August I have a pruning routine that I go through to sort of rein the plants back in so that they focus their energy on ripening the large tomatoes that are growing on them right now. I want to make sure that as many tomatoes as possible are ripened by the time of our first frost. So what I do is I go back on each branch and make sure that I'm not going to cut off a tomato, and I clip it off. And this plant doesn't have anything on this long rangy growth, so it's perfectly fine to trim it back. I know this seems kind of brutal, but it's something that's important to do. And again, if you live in a northern climate, a short season climate, you need to do everything you can to make sure your tomatoes will be ripe by the end of the season. Well, that looks a little different, doesn't it? Now, this is going to encourage a bit more new growth, and so in about 2 weeks I'm going to prune again. And then as we get closer to frost, I'm going to do some really severe pruning to force these plants to ripen the last of the tomatoes. We've been harvesting a ton of our pole beans. These are Musica, and it's my favorite variety. But I'm looking ahead to next year because I want to save seeds. And it is so easy to do with beans. These are not hybrids, so they'll come true the next year when I plant the seeds. And what I do is I just leave a few pods here and there. I'll leave them on the vines until they become absolutely papery dry and you can hear the seeds rattling around inside. Then I'll pick them, bring them inside into a light, warm area for a couple of weeks to let them finish drying until the seeds are really hard. Take the seeds out of the pods and then store them down in our cool, dark basement in a jar. And they will be perfect for next year. One of the things I love about onions is that they tell you when they're done growing. You'll notice that their stalks fall over. So what we have done about 10 days ago, we turned off the water to this bed because we could see the stalks starting to fall over. And then the majority of the stalks did fall over, so we pulled them up out of the ground. And the next step is to move them to a sheltered area, sheltered from the weather, both sunlight and rain, to let them finish drying so we can move them into storage for the winter. Now, just because it's August doesn't mean you can't grow lettuce. Our old lettuce is pretty much done from the heat, but I'm starting a new crop of them by planting 3 different kinds of lettuce in this bed. And as soon as I'm done sowing the seeds, I'm going to put the bird netting over the top again because our birds like to help themselves to the freshly sprouted seeds. You might recall from my July garden task video that I showed you this beautiful cosmos I'm growing called Cupcakes. And what is so unusual about it is that the outer ring of petals is all fused together as one. Wow! I think they're absolutely stunning. So this is a double form, and then I also have some single form. I would really like to save seeds from the double form, and that's what I'm going to do next. But the thing is that I did hear recently that the producer of some of the Cosmos Cupcake seeds is saying that saved seeds are not coming true, meaning you might not get what you plant. But I'm going to give it a try anyway. Ordinarily, I am a deadheading wizard because I want the plants to keep blooming. But on some of these flowers that are the doubles, I'm going to put a little piece of blue yarn around the stem of the plant in the hopes of remembering not to deadhead this particular flower. So I'll do this with maybe like 4 or 5 flowers and let them totally dry up, and I will save the seeds from them, plant them next year, and see what I get. So isn't this amazing? I had no idea these cosmos would get so big. Now I definitely want my roses to keep blooming, so I am going to deadhead them. This beautiful color is called At Last. It's one of my favorite roses. And speaking of gorgeous roses, how about this lovely Queen of Sweden? Oh, absolutely heavenly. Now here's a flower I definitely don't want to deadhead. This is a panicle hydrangea called Vanilla Strawberry. And it starts out with beautiful creamy blossoms, and then they will eventually turn a dusty rose color as we head into fall. And that's where the strawberry part of their name comes in. So I'm just going to admire the flowers, and I'm noticing that the pollinators sure like them too, which is great. I hope that your garden is doing really well. Remember to keep an eye on the moisture for everything so that all of your plants are happy. I'll see you in a week.